Trains can stop, but they can't stop quickly. We can't swerve out of the way for you. We can only go where this track takes us. I've been involved in an incident with an aid car where he tried to beat our train. He hit the crossing so hard that he almost went out of control himself. They went out of sight. My heart just dropped to my stomach. And in the meantime, we're in an emergency and we're stopping. Within a matter of seconds, we were on that crossing.
So imagine this, the tones are going off in your fire station. You're getting a call for multiple vehicles. They need backup because of a rollover out on the nearby highway. You swing into your boots, you're pulling up your gear, you're still writing down the address that you're going to, looking at the map, getting that together, swinging up into the rig, making sure that the street light is on and cutting off other traffic, putting your headphones on. Then you're moving out into traffic now, watching both ways to make sure that you're not hit. Moving out toward your incident, there's a whole lot going on. What's it going to be like? You're hearing incoming information about the incident. You are fully focused on what's going to be a large incident. You come up to railroad tracks. Did anybody even notice? You cross the railroad tracks going into this incident. One vehicle makes it across safely. In your rear view mirrors, you look and what do you see? Your other responder is hit and struck by a train. What's going on with your incident now? Now the incident starts to quickly unravel. There's now a train in emergency. There's one injury and one fatality of your own that you find. What happened with your response to the original incident that you were going out on? It's your brothers. It's your sisters that you've worked with all these years. You know their family. You know everything about them, and now you have a tough extrication just getting your own out of this car. So now, what about the rollover? What happened with that challenging incident that was out there on the highway? Who is going to help those people? Who is available after the rescuer has been hit on the way in?
Emergency response. Your safety first.
Emergency vehicle operators are always in a position of making risk-benefit analysis. They've got a known issue on the other side. As they approach a rail crossing, they have to decide, is it worth it to pass directly in front of a moving train? No, we need to yield to the railroad.
Around 2:25 p.m. I was responding to a call to try to help hem up a burglary suspect. I was approaching some railroad tracks in the area. I did not hear the bells because of all the radio traffic going off in my helmet. At about 35 yards from the tracks, the radio traffic stopped. That's when I first heard the bells and I saw the train. I was looking for a place to jump off the bike. When the train came by, the steps from the locomotive clipped the side of my bike, knocking me off the bike into the diesel tanks that run between the wheels. I was very, very fortunate and came out with only a broke leg and a broke wrist and 12 stitches in my elbow. It could have been a fatality. You need to pay attention as well to what's going on around you, not just the radio traffic. That was the only train in the 2 years that I've been riding down there that I had seen, and it was the one that I hit.
St. Patrick's Day of year 2000, a firefighter was returning in Fayetteville, North Carolina with a ladder truck. The firefighter waited for a freight train to clear that was going in the near of the two double tracks, veered out around the gates which were still down, and he was struck by an Amtrak train traveling in the other track the other direction. He was ejected and killed in the ensuing collision. The sight distance was restricted because of the first train that was just clearing, and of course the environment of the fire truck posed a problem for him as well. Anytime there's more than one track, that presents an especially large problem to us with large vehicles. That means it's that much longer until you have your equipment clear of the tracks.
I was operating a switch local through Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, where the tracks went right through the middle of town. We were ringing the bell. We had a man on the point of the engine. A sheriff pulled right out in front of us. We're only going about 8 miles an hour. We turned his car clean on its side.
Another common problem is our own noise. Sirenicide, we call it. Our sirens are howling. What can we hear? What can we hear of trains on approach? Can we hear the diesel motor? Can we hear the horns? Can we hear the whistles? Some people call it tunnel vision. You are so focused on the incident that maybe you haven't expanded your vision and your thinking to include hazards that affect you on the way in or affect you at your incident.
The freight train is wider than the tracks. Just because of the sheer mass of that freight train, you get an optical illusion. So it's extremely hard when a train is approaching you to judge the speed of a train. A whole freight train can be by you in 1 minute's time at 60 miles an hour.
It's easy coming up to a railroad track to have the illusion of a train moving slowly, because large objects moving at that tight of a closing angle appear further and slower than they really are.
Our average freight train, 12 million pound freight train from 60 miles an hour, is going to take 1 mile or more to stop. And only at 30 miles an hour, it's going to take 1/2 mile or more to stop.
If the train goes into emergency to avoid us, even if we make it across the crossing safely, that train may derail or there may be injuries on the train secondary to an emergency stop. One of the country's most serious collisions was in Bourbonnais, Illinois, where Amtrak struck a steel truck crossing a commercial grade crossing, and many people were killed. It was a very serious incident, but very few people realized that only 1 week later in Oregon, a fire truck was crossing a crossing without enough distance in front of the train, and Amtrak had to go into emergency to avoid a fire truck, of all things, along the right-of-way. Firefighters and EMS crews, search and rescue, we all know to create cone zones out in traffic so we're not struck. How many of us know how to stop a train? There's 3 points that always have to be addressed with stopping train traffic in our rail corridor. Number 1 is notify the railroad anytime we're on or near a rail grade. Number 2 is flag, and that means physically go out at 2 miles in each direction and flag on the engineer or the train's right side and give the stop sign for the railroad. The third thing is post a worksite spotter at your incident site to make sure they're looking for headlights coming into your scene. It's really important to annually check all the phone numbers of the railroad. It's important for us to make sure all those numbers are updated. The emergency community changes a lot too, and so it's important to give the railroads our 10-digit out-of-state direct-in lines so that they can contact our emergency centers directly with issues.
When planning your emergency route, try and use crossings with active warning devices where we have state-of-the-art lights and gates.
A number of fire departments have very successful pre-planning with their railroads, and they know that if they have trains on approach, they're not going to have access to various parts of their community. So their emergency routing takes into account safe crossings of the railroad, either at overhead or underpasses that go through where they don't have to pass at grade and be exposed to the danger.
We take things for granted. We take areas for granted that we never see a train on the tracks. Doesn't mean there's not one coming.
If we don't obey the laws that are there and get struck by a train, now we have 2 emergencies where no one gets to that emergency.
It's often the case we think we're the big guys. We've got the biggest equipment out there. You know, we're the ones that everybody else has to yield to. And yet, if you compare a fire truck with a 12 million pound average train, the weight ratio of 4,000 to 1 puts us way down the list as the little guys. We're like every other driver. So our red lights have to stop for the train's lights. There's no way that the trains can yield to us no matter how dire the call is.
As an emergency responder, you perform a vital life-saving service to your community. When approaching railroad crossings, always expect a train. Look both ways. The sounds of radio traffic and sirens can drown out the train horn. Yield to the train. The crossbuck means yield because trains cannot stop quickly or swerve to avoid vehicles. Trains create optical illusions. Even at high speeds, they appear to be approaching very slowly. Multiple tracks. After a train passes by, be alert for a second train approaching from the other direction. Remember, your safety is first. Look, listen, and live. For more information, please contact Operation Lifesaver at 1-800-537-6224 or visit their website at www.oli.org.